I only like two kinds of men, domestic and imported. Vinyl Guru in the house, here to talk to you today about the best of the best when it comes to blaxploitation movies and the soundtracks that came with it. Let's dive in.
Vinyl Guru, Vinyl Guru. Vinyl Guru.
Before I start my list, I do want to tell you a little bit about what blaxploitation even is if you are a novice to the genre and or overall theme. Blaxploitation is a subgenre of exploitation film that started around the early 70s. Now, as much as they were popular, they were extremely criticized by critics overall because they featured a lot of stereotypical roles for the black community. You know, pimps and hoes and all kinds of foes. You know, extreme criminals and just the extremity and outrageousness that were showcased in the films. Now, although they might be outrageous in film, the soundtracks played a crucial role in delivering the goods. The soundtracks, of course, for me, in my own opinion, outshined all of them and created the legacy. I know what you're probably thinking. What does scrawny white girl know about blaxploitation movies? Fair enough. But this is absolutely one of my favorite things to collect. Blaxploitation soundtracks. They are some of the most innovative, most fabulously arranged black music in the 70s. I just love it. So I can't wait to show you some of the best if you are somewhat new to this whole thing and if you know and love. Figure I'd start this list off easy with a soul and R&B artist that was the most prolific at the time and the most profitable for the industry in the 70s. An act that put out an album that really is probably one of his best, as he was given extreme creative freedom and reign to showcase his potential. The arrangements on this album, his 12th album, on the Tamla Motown, Tamla is Motown's little baby label. On the Tamla label, they really renewed his contract here and gave him the reins. And my goodness, this is the sonic template of geniusness. I am so glad that he was able to showcase his greatness on his 12th album. Let me give you a whirl of the amazingness that is the Trouble Man soundtrack.
I didn't make it sure that I'm playing by the rules. Got me singing, yeah, yeah.
The next cat that we're gonna talk about here had a song that was super huge at the time. I'm Black and I'm Proud, a classic hit of Mr. James Brown. Came out and was just super huge, mega smash for him. So he was on the minds of many. And so when he came out with this soundtrack, a lot of people didn't get it at the time. This is Black Caesar. A really great flick. And great soundtrack, if I'm being honest. It had Fred Wellesley on here that composed and produced this with him, arranged it with him, really great. He had his tight ass, the JBs, you know, that's a crazy band that he had. Super tight, super in the pocket. So this actually was phenomenal and wasn't appreciated until years later, unfortunately. But just people didn't like it because they thought that the overall tone of the film didn't really fit the screams, wild chops, and outrageousness that James brought to the table. But of course, somebody like James Brown is always going to be appreciated much later, very ahead of his time, Mr. James Brown.
day, man. Like, you know.
I was born in New York City. Boy, give me shine, boy. Oh, just
Now, another man who is so ahead of his time that he took us actually back in time to take us there is Mr. Adrian Young, a genius composer of the now. This is actually new, believe it or not. This was released in 2009. A flick called Black Dynamite, which is kind of like a funny satire version of Blaxploitation. Think of it as the Spinal Tap of Blaxploitation. Phenomenal, phenomenal flick though. I loved this. But this is Adrian Young. Phenomenal man. Phenomenal stuff. This is super up there. And I showcased this right after Black Caesar, right after Trouble Man, because this really takes from it quite a bit. He had his own sauce in there, don't get me wrong, but his love for analog gear is super showcased in this alone. And I mean, man, he had a sight. He had a sight. I gotta show you some of this because I think you will love this. And check it out, support him. He has his own record label, Linear Labs. Great stuff, and he puts out his own records out to, wow. For somebody who you can check out now and support now, definitely do it, as he is still alive and he out here trying to survive. The next one is actually probably the Eiffel Tower of them all. It is the one that holds them all up and transcended the Blaxploitation scene, vibe, genre, as this is a masterpiece. Curtis Mayfield, Superfly. This was phenomenal, man. Phenomenal. I got the lo-fi version as I showcased in another video here. But this is just greatness. Came out in 72. I mean, was so ahead and fabulous. The subject matter led for such great stuff later on in terms of the world of hip hop and all of that. But I mean, poverty, violence, pimpatry, money, drugs, hoe bagging. This is classic hip hop. classic hip hop. I mean, the cover art of some of these things, you know, they was exploiting in all the fun, fabulous ways, but this record was so great. It was his third album release, Curtis Mayfield's, and it was so great. I mean, all the weird ways he did vocals, the ways that the guitars were slanging. Let me show you, please.
I'm your mama, I'm your daddy, I'm that nigga in the alley. A doctor when in need, want some coke, have some weed. You know me, your friend, your main boy, thick and thin. I'm your pusher man.
Next act that I'm going to be talking about here is Mr. Roy Ayers. Ninth album that he came out with for Coffee, the soundtrack that featured one of my favorite actresses, Miss Pam Grier, the cheerleader of the Blaxploitation scenery. This is phenomenal. 1973. Coffee. Now, what to say about Coffee? Well, essentially, this is his 9th record that he came out with now, and I have to say, this is far more on the sophisticated side compared to most Blaxploitation flick soundtracks. And I say that because he went a little bit more on the brighter, jazzier funk side, but still awfully tasty. Especially for a flick that was featured about somebody trying to save the 11-year-old sister from drugs. How we doing? How we doing? This next one is by Willie Hutch. I love me my Willie Hutch. This is his 5th release. He put out a really great soundtrack previous to this one called The Mac, which I don't have, but I'm looking for, believe me. But this one I really love, not only because it has my wonderful cheerleader on here, Miss Pam Grier. Again, we love you, baby. We love you. But this came out in 1974, put out on Motown. Now, he was with RCA previous to this, but ever since he signed with Motown, he started doing more stuff like this, which I love. This is porn music, and I'll tell you why. I mean, essentially, the song right from the beginning, my favorite song on here, Give Me Some of That Good Old Love, right in the beginning, it has this real, you know, it's got that porn, honey. I gotta get my pimp cane for this, because it's got that swinging, you know, guitar, and it's got that coochie coo, you know, right in the beginning. And when he kicks in with that, give me some of that good old love, that good old shit. It is great. I will play it right now, actually, while we're on it. Don't let me do the singing. Come on, Willie. Let's do this, Willie.
Oh, baby, give me some of that old love. Sure.
This next one, by one of my favorite soul brothers out there, put out a track. One of my favorite tracks of his too, I have to say. This is some serious heat that I'm going to talk about on this next one. This is by Isaac Hayes. Brother, honey. Oh my God, honey. Do your thing, honey. Woo! The song Do Your Thing on here. It's long, but well worth it, my dear. Side 4 of this beauty, 1971. Yes, I know exactly where it is, because that's exactly where I go when I spin this baby. My goodness, I melted the hell out of this one, and there is a reason for it. This is the song that made me even want to wear this pimp hat for you for this video. You just feel like a G-boss thing. You ought to not play with this one, honey. Let me play this for you.
If the music make you move, 'cause you can dig it under the stars above. Love, whatever, all you do.
Keeping with the theme of Isaac Hayes, we're talking about his next one here. Can you see that? Truck Turner! Geniusness. Actually, this is his 3rd soundtrack now. This came out in 1974 on Stax. And this one here, he actually starred in as Turner. This is great stuff. He's got a song on here called Breakthrough, and honey, that is the star of this soundtrack for me. The fuzz guitar on here and all of that is fabulous, darlings. Please, let's give this a damn whirl. Now, this next one is often name-dropped as one of the most important blaxploitation scores out here. And it does deserve the name and legacy, that title that it holds. As, sweet Pat. Badass stuff indeed, my dear. This was directed, featured, and scored by Mr. Melvin Van Peebles. He was in this as well. Starred in this as well. This came out on Stax. Okay, 1971. Greatness. This is a really clean copy of it, by the way. This is phenomenal. Definitely recommend it as well. And it featured even Earth, Wind, and Fire. Let me give you a little bit of a taste for this. next one here is by a jazz soul artist and organist named Charles Earland. Now, Charles put out a Blaxploitation soundtrack called the Dynamite Brothers. This came out on Prestige. Yeah, there we go. We got it. So it came out on the Prestige label, 1974. Pretty good stuff. But I must say, even though it was following that move of, the soul jazz stuff kind of starting to fuse into this funk fusion thing, was it the best representation of that movement? Not really. Is it a great soundtrack still? Sure, darling, absolutely. So let's give this a swirl. This next one came out in 1973, composed by J.J. Johnson, and it is some greatness. Let us show you the gloriousness of Cleopatra Jones. This is some erotic stuff here, and it's featuring Joe Simon and Millie Jackson. This is some great work. Now, this record, it is actually interesting because it has this Asian influence. It's merging the world of black jazz, but also some Asian tones here to create a completely different sonic template, to me at least. Now, this did really well too. It also sold like about 500,000 copies, but it's was super great. Let me show you. The next one I'm going to talk about is towards the end of the 70s, not at the peak of the Blaxploitation era, but this is great. I loved this. This is quite comedic. Disco Godfather, featuring Rudy Ray Moore, betterly known from Dynamite, the character he created in The Return of Dynamite, and of course I'm sure you guys know Dynamite now from the Eddie Murphy remake. But great stuff, man. This Disco Godfather, it came out, like I said, in 79, and the title track, Disco Godfather, is well worth the investment of this. Not that much on there, but quite lengthy and beautiful. And now, if you jive turkeys are into any of this kind of stuff, do give this a swirl, darling. This was a repress, actually, from the first press since 1979, limited to 1,000 copies, actually. This came out on Record Store Day in the UK. I had to do a quick Google online for this one, but I quite loved this one. Really great, really funny, kind of a parody to the disco era. Good stuff. Let me give you the title track for this one, as it is the goldmine of it.
Is a godfather of the disco. He's a godfather of the disco.
This next one isn't exactly a Blaxploitation film. I have to say, it's not a soundtrack for Blaxploitation, but it does feature some great acts that were featured in some. So I figured this comp, or live record, I should say, fit the bill to me, okay? And it is my list, after all. You don't gotta tell me what to do. So, here we go. Wax Stack. Okay, this is a Stax release. This is the second, actually, the second benefit concert that they did, because they did two. The first one did really well, that they felt like they should do this one. And this one is a little bit more on the spoken word type thing. It actually features Richard Pryor in it. Just greatness, man. Still got the high sticker on there. Rated R, huh? R for Richie. This is great. This is rich in content. I do recommend that you do check this out as well. But alas, we have made it to the end. So let me know. Do you even know the genius of this stuff? Do you appreciate it? Did you check it out and let me know if you like it? I don't know. Please let me know if I brought you into an interesting world that you've never fully deep dived in.
Mr. Rufus Thomas! My. Just look around. Look at me, showing you how. I'm gonna do it for you. I'm gonna do it for y'all.
This is for the beginner blaxploitation experimentalist. If you want to dip into blaxploitation culture, there is a really great comp out there. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? So check it out. This is got my cheerleader baby on there. Yes, ma'am. But this is volume 2. I don't have volume 1 yet, but this is volume 2. It's 68 to 75. The music and politics of blaxploitation stuff. Okay, I'm gonna write the title down so it's a lot easier for you. I know she rounded and definitely looking like a Skittle right now. But Miss Pam Grier out here to feature loud and clear. A lot of the stuff on here I did tell you, especially on the first and second side, but the third and fourth side does have some different gems on there that I didn't feature. So if you want to just grab this instead of collecting every single LP out there, you can just slap this on and get it a whirl, especially if you don't want to constantly dip and flip. Grab one of these. It's great. And it'll definitely give you that cocktail that you never thought you needed at 1 a.m. Let's cut the crap, shall we? No, this is the end. I know, folks. I know. It is the tearjerker moment. I do know. But nonetheless, if you do want more, click that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that little moon chime thing, that wind chime that's right next to the subscribe button, that little bell. Because that bell is going to let you be informed on when I come next right at your door. And if you want me to wind chime at your door, hit that bell. So let's do this tango again. Until then, toodaloo, darlings. Toodaloo.